Okay, it's time to talk about Sarah J. Maas again. Unlike Sarah's main characters who want to impale themselves on I want to impale myself on a sharp obstacle. We are here to discuss Crescent City 2, Too Fey, Too Furious. The person who's furious is me. Having to suffer for no reason as Sarah Jalapeno Maas led me on a wild goose chase to nowhere for approximately 7 million pages. Crescent City 2, House of Sky and Breath. House of Sigh and wish that I had held in my breath until I passed out, because that would have been more enjoyable than reading this book. So this was a book that I read, and I absolutely fucking hated it. So right off the bat, at 4% in, I stalled for literally months, because I was like, listen, I'm bored as fuck, and I remember very little about book one. Nothing really set in because I didn't really care. So I came across passages like this, and I'm like, trouble is I don't remember what any of those words mean. Great. Awesome. Having a fantastic time. Let's talk about the whole book, including the fact that Sarah Just the Tip Maas created her own MCU. In this case, MCU stands for Most Cringe Universe. Oh, first I have to say thank you for being a friend. I have to shout out my potato starch Marxist patrons. Y'all are the Danica to my Bryce, I guess. Thank you to Molly, Reba, Allison, Ebby, Carlin, Shannon, Paige, Sean, and Kate. I appreciate y'all. You keep this shit show going. For some reason in this book, we get multiple POVs. Chapters from Merman Therion's perspective, which absolutely nobody gives a shit about. And of course, Therion, just like every other man in the SJM MCU, is the most muscly muscle man. In fact, the characters lined up just one after the other, all of the men in this series, would just look like one of those bodybuilder competitions where all of them have been dehydrating for at least 24 hours in order to get themselves to be like at their peak muscly looking. And Therion, almost more than Hunt, almost but not quite, is the biggest culprit of something that happens throughout this series, which is that everybody wants to fuck Bryce. Oh, and we now get perspectives from Ethan, who wants to fuck Bryce, who is the brother of the dead Connor, who definitely wanted to fuck Bryce. But obviously the person who wants to fuck Bryce the most is Hunt Athalar. And oh god, her sex scenes are getting worse. I did not quite, she's actually trying, I think she watches my videos, it's a lie. But she's trying to do better because the bingo card didn't work. It didn't work very well because I didn't hit all of them. So I actually had to change something to try to get bingo. I see you, Sarah. I see you trying to get around it, but I know you well. So yeah, I cheated a little bit on the sex bingo, but whatever. So the word seed was definitely used. Velvet Wrap Steel was actually not used, so wow, joke's on me. Slam to the hilt, yeah. Nipples pebbling, yeah. No apex of her thighs. We actually used the word clit. Good for you, Sarah. Growth, we like to see it. Arousal being smelled, absolutely constant. Being shocked at how huge the main character's love interest dick is, absolutely, of course. Roaring and saying her sex instead of another word for vagina. So, you know, almost bingo. Not quite, but I mean, almost. I shouldn't be able to predict that much anyways. It's a little bit ridiculous that I can predict that much. So she finally uses the word clitoris, which good for her, but now that came along with the fact that we have Hunt deciding that it's a good idea to electrocute said clitoris. And I wish that I had never laid eyes on such a scene, my god. I'm really uncomfortable with how sex is talked about in regards to literally every man wanting to fuck Bryce, but I'm definitely uncomfortable with electrocuting Bryce's vagina. Therion, Merman, not Barnacle Boy, regularly goes and sniffs Bryce's panties and like calls her legs, and it's just very weird. Like, why the fuck is he hitting on her so much? He's engaged, but he admits that like he just wanted to fuck the princess and now he's engaged to her and he wish he wasn't. And at the end, he literally doesn't want to be with her so badly. He goes and signs up with the Viper Queen to like be a fighter. What? Why do I get POVs from such an asshole? Like, he's literally the villain of this story in my eyes. Sarah loves him, but to me he's a villain. Then we have Ethan, who's brooding over having feelings for Bryce, which is weird and unnecessary. Could have been been a nice brother-sister dynamic, but no, because even when we have a brother-sister dynamic, it's awkward. Sarah literally cannot write a man and a woman next to each other without making a little bit of chemistry. It's gross. Hunt gets so upsetty spaghetti at one point over Bryce getting threatened that she literally has to fuck him to get him to snap out of this weird mate-induced anger coma, I guess I would call it, where he's basically a caveman unable to compute anything until he has sex with his mate. Oh yeah, by the way, they are mates now. Who saw that coming? Everybody? Okay. I like how mates are rare, except no, they're fucking not. Also, this is Aelin Chaol fanfic. I'm just saying. If Aelin and Chaol were mates instead of Aelin and Rowan, this would be their story. Aelin and Bryce are basically the same person. From like the everybody wants to fuck me to the badly written sass lines to the I made a plan and executed it without everybody knowing and now I get to gloat that I did all these things off page behind the scene and everybody's upset that I did them without their knowledge. Bryce is just Aelin and Hunt is just Chaol. About as tolerable as Chaol in Tower of Dawn. Yes, that was an insult. I guess maybe I should touch on some other stuff, yeah. Okay, there's a concentration camp in the beginning, which was an interesting choice, where we see Sophie Renast, the Firebird, looking for her brother who at the is also maybe a Firebird, but then he's definitely not by the end of the book. And this sets us up because Sophie and her brother, who are part of this like human rebellion, are both missing persons that Bryce and company are looking for, including Bryce's cousin Cormac, who is also Bryce's fiance. Yes, I meant that. But surprise, he actually works for the rebellion. I will say that at least Cormac didn't want to fuck Bryce, which seeing as they were literally cousins, finally, for once Sarah does not make cousins fuck each other. Was there a reason that they needed to be cousins? No. SJM just really likes the idea of cousin fucking. Gentle reminder once again that Aelin and Dorian, as well as Aelin and Rowan, are cousins, so gross. So back to the whole Sophia Renast thing. This turns into, once again, a police procedural. Dun dun! Sarah J. Maas really said Law and Order Special Fae Unit. The problem is she has no idea how to write a police procedural. And by the end, the whole missing persons case was just a wild goose chase, and thus just like a fucking waste of my time. Because Bryce, off page, finds Sophie Renast's brother Emil and sends him to live with her mother, and Sophie was dead the whole time. We have been following this Scooby gang, this like Hell's version of Scooby gang, around while they try to find Sophie and Emil, only for it to be a wild goose chase. Why? Does that sound like an awfully short plot to you? It is. So you may be asking yourself, why is this book 8,795 pages approximately? Because once again, Bloomsbury does not care anymore. They don't care. SJM is a cash cow. She can write nonsense, has written nonsense, and yet they will publish her. They will keep doing it. Her stories do not have to be good. She can do the same badly written things over and over and over, and Bloomsbury knows it'll keep selling. Like, I'm not even mad at her. I'm not even convinced a fully conscious editor works on these books. I mean, shit, if I was the editor and I knew I could get away with it, I would sleep on the job, and I'm convinced that that's what's going on here. All right, let me go through my notes I made in the ebook. Okay, all right, I will say that there is something that I like in this series, one singular thing, and it's the Prince of Hell, who shows up as a cat. Does this have to do with me being a cat person? Probably. We're not gonna question it. So Adidas shows up being awesome, and he's like, hey, everything you know is a lie. Hell's actually the good guys. Hell with one L. And then he leaves, and he goes away, and I'm like, no, Adis, take me with you. Don't leave me with Bryce and company. Don't leave me with the world's worst Scooby gang. I hate it. I don't want to be in the MCU anymore. So Adis is the one thing that I like, but then we switch back to things that I don't like. Like, she definitely describes that, she does that thing that all authors, like every author does this, where if they are describing teleporting or moving through space or time, they're like, picture a piece of paper and drawing two dots and then folding the paper and the two dots meet. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. Shut up. Get a new way to describe that. I'm begging you. If I have to see it in one more book, I'm gonna burn all the books. I'm gonna be the biggest, most fascist book burner simply because I despise that line. That might be a little too far. Let's see. What else does she say that I hate? Oh, other things I wish would stop. I'm literally begging her. His tongue swept along her in an introductory "I nice to fuck you" flit. Sarah, just make it stop. Mass, once again, making me cringe to a degree I did not know I was capable of. This, of course, is the scene where he electric zaps her coochie, and can I just say that while I'm of the opinion that light choking is vanilla, electricity is decidedly not. He also looks at her naked and says, "Look at you," which is definitely something Rhys said to Farrah. So yeah, we're just, as usual in the MCU, recycling the same shit. So, oh, speaking of which, Sarah Joker era mask then does this thing where she typically does, where she's writing like this. She inserts a word and then she re-emphasizes that word over and over and over again. So she did this at like the beginning of A Court of Silver Flames with the word cold. That's the last one I can remember off the top of my head. But she does it here where she's saying, "For Hunt there was only Bryce. Bryce, bleeding and hurt. Bryce, who'd made that brash run for the sword, blah blah. Bryce, who'd gotten to her feet anyway. Bryce, his mate." And I know she does this to try to emphasize, but it's so predictable, and at this point I feel like I could write a Sarah J. Maas book for her. Like, I could ghostwrite for her, and all I can do is laugh. So I just wish she'd find a new way to emphasize. This, combined with what I feel like is an ongoing issue of her not knowing how to write trauma that isn't shallow. Like, Sarah, everyone is here supposed to be like traumatized from what happened last spring, right? But yet they're all just weird and horny. Why didn't you put a single person in therapy? Hello? More cringe. Bryce says to Ethan that because her and Hunt want to bone, she wants their apartment to themselves, and he's been staying there, and she says, "Sorry for sexiling you, Ethan." Ma'am, where is my apology for having to read the word sexiling? When will I know peace from Bryce and Hunt's sex scenes? I beg you to tell me when. I had it worse than Ethan, thank you very much. I also had to read lines like, "Fuck me like the prince you are. Lightning filled the room, filled her as surely as his seed." It was at that moment that I wish I had been struck by lightning into unconsciousness. Bryce's brother, who, by the way, she calls hot, which is yikes, also gets some sex scenes, and in general is just a horny motherfucker, but like, he's a tolerable horny motherfucker, so at least that. So he's working as a spy, and I say spy very loosely because this is think of the furthest thing from 007 that you possibly can. That's where Rune is at in this book. He's the least capable version of 007 that Sarah Jingle Bell's Mask could have possibly dreamed up. He connects through Mindspeak with this other operative named Day, and she calls him Night. Maybe Sarah Jeepers Creepers Mass saw that movie Night and Day, which is also about romance and spies. Who's to say? But Rune is truly the worst for the job, and immediately is like, whoever this Day person is, I want to bone. She seems hot as fuck, even though I can't see her face. And he tells her, "I want to smell your scent. Stop it." Which, maybe that's supposed to be romantic, according to Sarah. I don't know. To me, it just seems serial killery. And then it turns out she's secretly the Hind, not to be confused with the Hammer, the Harpy, and the other H's. I don't know why they're all called H words. It's very confusing and weird. So she's actually the Hind, who's a bad guy, so she's a double agent. Gasp, shock, don't care. Unfortunately, at this point, I was too far gone to give a single shit about anything that was happening in this book. Wait, there is this really funny part though, before I tell you about the ending. So Bryce's powers, there's like a star on her chest, and they figure out that she can amp up her powers by like using different things like Hunt and his electricity. And so the lightning slams into her chest at one point and like right into her star and like amps up her powers, and all I could think was Shazam! So the ending. Alright, so Adidas, he was right, and the Asteri, who are like the high power, are in fact not like good, benevolent, overseers. They are seen as like gods, but in fact they're just aliens. They just came from a different universe in the most cringe universe, the MCU, and they use people for their power, both in like, so like in death people become like raw energy and they like feed on that. So they all go to the Asteri Palace, they find out about this, they all get captured. The Hind is revealed to be, a double agent. Her and Hunt are definitely, not Hunt, her and Rune are definitely mates. That's the only reason they have that mind speak ability. It's ridiculous. And then somehow, I don't remember the mechanics of this, somehow Bryce tries to go to hell to get help from Hellions, whatever they're called, Adidas and all them, and instead ends up in a different area of the most cringe universe. And who should pop on the page but the least pro-choice man in the MCU, Rhys. And I knew this was gonna happen, and still nothing could prepare me for the cringe. I think that there's like a level of cringe that will stop, like the maximum cringe that I could possibly do Sarah just keeps finding new ways to make me max out my cringe capacity, truly. I don't want it. I don't ever want to see the name Rhysand on page again. He's the fucking worst. I am dead inside. So apparently Bryce is gonna get help from the other shitty Scooby gang, Rhysand and company. Should have stayed in the sweet spot. Should have stayed in the sweet spot. So that's it. That was Crescent City 2, Too Fae, Too Furious. I am furious that this got published. Terrible. No good. Very bad. Hate it. This book made no fucking sense. It was a wild goose chase. It was stupid, and it was just a way for Sarah to get back to her main squeeze, Rhysand. I am no thank you. So that's it. Let me know your thoughts below. Let me know what you make the J in Sarah's middle name. I try to think up a few different ones this time around. God help me on the next video because I'm running out of J words. Alright, thanks for watching. I will, yes, read the next one. God help me. But for now I have other books to rant about, so leave your comments down below. If you want to subscribe to the Patreon to get early access to videos, link is down below. Like, subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye!